Picture this. You set up your aquarium 6 months ago. You bought the tank, the filter, the heater, the driftwood, the plants, the substrate, the water conditioner, the test kit, and every small piece of equipment the hobby told you that you needed. You did not rush it. You did not throw fish into a brand new tank on day one. You cycled the aquarium properly, waited for the bacteria to establish, tested the water again and again, and made sure the numbers looked safe before adding livestock. Your ammonia is 0. Your nitrite is 0. Your nitrate is in a safe range. Your fish are swimming normally, eating well, showing good color, and behaving exactly the way healthy fish should behave. By every normal aquarium rule, the tank should look clean. But when you step back and look at the glass, something still feels wrong. The water is not bright. It is not crisp. It has that brown amber tint, like weak tea poured over the whole aquarium. The fish look duller than they should. The plants look muted instead of fresh and green. The driftwood looks nice, but the entire tank seems stained. Even after cleaning the glass, trimming the plants, vacuuming the surface of the substrate, and changing the water, the aquarium still looks dirty. So you do what almost every beginner and even many experienced hobbyists do. You change the water again. Then you change more water. You buy a bottle of water clarifier from the pet store because the label promises clearer water. You add the dose, wait a day, run the filter non-stop, stare at the tank, and hope the brown color disappears. Maybe it looks slightly better for a short time. Maybe nothing happens at all. Then 2 days later, the same brown color is still sitting in the water column. This is where most hobbyists get frustrated, because the tank is not unhealthy, but it also does not look clean. The mistake is assuming that brown aquarium water always means dirty aquarium water. In many cases, it does not. You may not have a filtration failure. You may not have a bad cycle. You may not have too much fish waste. You may not even have a water quality problem. What you may have is a chemistry problem. And the fix is much simpler and much cheaper than the aquarium product shelf wants you to believe. The brown water in many aquariums is caused by tannins. Tannins are natural organic compounds that leach out of driftwood, leaves, seed pods, botanicals, and sometimes certain natural substrates. They dissolve into the water and create that yellow, golden, brown, or tea-colored tint. They are not floating dirt in the normal sense. They are not pieces of waste that a basic sponge or filter floss can simply catch. They are dissolved compounds, and that is why regular cleaning often fails to remove them completely. This is also why many bottled water clarifiers disappoint people. Most clarifiers are designed to bind tiny floating particles together, so the filter can catch them more easily. That can help with cloudy water caused by dust, bacterial bloom, or suspended debris. But tannin-stained water is different. The color is dissolved into the water itself. You are not trying to catch visible particles. You are trying to remove dissolved organic staining. That requires a different type of filtration. The product that solves this is activated carbon. Not an expensive mystery chemical, not a complicated machine, not a premium bottle with aquarium marketing on the front, but a simple bag of activated carbon or activated charcoal made for aquarium use. You can often find it in the pet care aisle at Walmart, in local fish stores, in big box pet stores, or online. It is one of the oldest and most trusted chemical filtration media in the hobby, but because it is cheap and simple, it is not always presented as the main answer. The aquarium industry makes money when beginners panic at ugly water and keep buying small bottles of treatment. Brown water makes a tank look dirty, and when a tank looks dirty, hobbyists want an immediate fix. That creates a perfect sales cycle. Your water looks bad. You buy a bottle. The result is temporary or incomplete. The water looks bad again, and you buy another bottle. But a small bag of activated carbon can often do the job better because it is targeting the actual cause. Activated carbon works through adsorption. Adsorption is different from absorption. Absorption means something soaks into something else, like a sponge soaking up water. Adsorption means molecules stick to the surface of a material. Activated carbon has a huge internal surface area filled with microscopic pores. Those pores create an enormous amount of surface for dissolved compounds to attach to. When aquarium water passes through or around activated carbon, tannins and other dissolved organic molecules can stick to that carbon surface and become trapped inside the pores. The brown color is not being hidden, it is not being perfumed, it is not being temporarily clumped together. The compounds causing the tint are being removed from the water column. This is why activated carbon can make such a dramatic difference in a tannin-stained aquarium. It attacks the discoloration at the chemical level. If you have driftwood that is releasing tannins, a fresh bag of activated carbon, placed correctly in the filter, can begin pulling those tannins out as water moves through it. The result is clearer water, brighter fish, cleaner-looking plants, and a tank that finally looks as healthy as it actually is. But the key phrase is placed correctly. A lot of people use carbon badly and then decide that it does not work. Carbon needs water flow. It cannot sit in a dead corner of the aquarium and magically clean the entire tank. The tannin-stained water has to move into contact with the carbon surface. That is why the best place for carbon is usually inside your filter. If you use a hang-on back filter, a canister filter, or any filter with a media compartment, put the carbon inside a fine mesh media bag and place it after your mechanical filtration. This part matters. Mechanical filtration means sponge, floss, filter pads, or anything that catches physical debris. Water should pass through the sponge or floss first, so large particles, plant fragments, uneaten food, and waste do not clog the carbon. After the water has been mechanically cleaned, it should pass through the carbon so the carbon pores can focus on dissolved organics such as tannins. If you put carbon before the sponge, the tiny pores can become blocked by dirt and debris, which reduces its ability to remove the compounds you actually want removed. Think of it like this. The sponge catches the visible mess. The carbon removes the invisible stain. Both jobs are useful, but they should happen in the right order. Before putting activated carbon into the filter, rinse it briefly. Carbon often contains fine black dust from shipping and packaging. If you drop it straight into the tank without rinsing, you may see a temporary black cloud or dark dust in the water. That dust is usually not dangerous, but it looks bad and can be avoided easily. Put the carbon into a media bag, rinse the bag under running water until most of the loose dust is gone, then place it in the filter. Do not scrub it with soap. Do not boil it with chemicals. Just rinse the loose dust away and use it as filter media. If your tank runs on a sponge filter and you do not have a traditional media chamber, you can still use carbon. Place the carbon bag in the aquarium where there is strong water movement. A good spot is near the air bubbles from the sponge filter, near a filter output, or anywhere the current is clearly moving. It will not be quite as neat as putting carbon inside a canister or hang-on back filter, but it can still work because the important thing is contact time and flow. Water must keep passing around the media. A carbon bag hidden behind a rock in still water will not do much. A carbon bag sitting in moving water can remove tannins surprisingly well. The timeline depends on the severity of the staining. In the first few hours, you may not see a big visual change. That does not mean nothing is happening. The carbon is already beginning to absorb dissolved compounds, but the concentration of tannins in the water may still be high enough that the color looks the same to your eyes. After several more hours, a moderately stained tank may begin shifting from dark amber to a lighter golden tone. Within a day, many aquariums with normal tannin levels from 1 or 2 pieces of driftwood look noticeably clearer. If the tank is heavily stained from large pieces of wood, fresh Malaysian driftwood, lots of leaves, or a blackwater-style setup with botanicals, it may take 2 or 3 days to see the full effect. But when the carbon is fresh, the flow is good, and the staining is actually caused by tannins, the improvement can be very obvious. This is why activated carbon is so useful. It does not require tearing the tank apart. It does not require removing all your driftwood. It does not require restarting the aquarium. You can keep the natural hardscape and still polish the color out of the water. That said, activated carbon is not unlimited. It has a finite capacity. The pores can fill up. Once those surfaces are saturated, the carbon stops removing tannins effectively. This is one of the most important things to understand, because many hobbyists assume carbon is a permanent object that keeps working forever. It is not. It is a media that becomes exhausted. How fast that happens depends on the amount of tannins being produced, the amount of carbon used, the quality of the carbon, the water flow, the tank size, and how new the driftwood is. In a tank with very heavy tannin leaching, carbon may become exhausted in a few weeks or even sooner. In a lightly stained aquarium, it may last closer to a month. The easiest sign is visual. If the water was clear and then slowly starts turning yellow or brown again, the carbon is probably saturated and needs to be replaced. You do not recharge normal aquarium carbon in a meaningful home aquarium way. You replace it. Luckily, this is cheap compared with repeatedly buying bottled treatments that do not solve the actual issue. Another important limitation is planted tanks. Activated carbon can remove dissolved organics, discoloration, odors, and some chemical residues, but it is not selective in a perfect way. If you dose liquid fertilizer in a planted aquarium, carbon may remove some of those nutrients from the water. This does not mean carbon instantly kills plants. It does not mean planted tanks can never use it. It means you should think of it as a tool. In a heavily planted tank where you are dosing nutrients on purpose, activated carbon is often best used temporarily. Run it for a couple of weeks to clear the tannins, then remove it once the water is clear and return to your normal fertilizing routine. If your planted tank is low-tech, lightly fertilized, or mostly relying on fish waste and substrate nutrients, this may be less of a concern. But in a carefully managed aquascape, you should not leave carbon in forever without thinking about what it may be removing. There is also one quality issue to watch for. Some low-quality activated carbon can release phosphate, and phosphate can contribute to algae growth. This is why it is better to choose activated carbon, made specifically for aquarium use from a trusted brand, especially one labeled phosphate-free or acid-washed. You do not need the most expensive premium carbon on the shelf, but you should avoid random charcoal or unknown media that is not clearly made for aquariums. Never use barbecue charcoal. Never use charcoal meant for grilling, fireplaces, odor control bags, or anything with additives. The label should clearly say activated carbon or activated charcoal for aquarium filtration. That one detail matters. Aquarium carbon is made and packaged for use around fish. Random charcoal is not. When diagnosing brown water, always look at the whole tank. If your water is brown, but your fish are gasping at the surface, your ammonia is high, your filter is failing, or the tank smells rotten, that is not just a tannin issue. That is a water quality problem, and you need to address the cause immediately. But if your water parameters are stable, your fish are healthy, your filter is running, and the main issue is a tea-colored tint after adding driftwood or botanicals, tannins are the likely explanation. This distinction matters because tannins themselves are not harmful. In fact, some fish keepers intentionally create blackwater tanks. They add leaves, wood, seed pods, and botanicals specifically to create warm, brown water that resembles natural habitats. Many species from soft, acidic waters feel safer and show better behavior in tannin-rich water. For those aquariums, brown water is not a defect. It is the goal. But not everyone wants that look. Many people want a bright community tank, a clean planted display, or a clear aquascape where the fish colors pop under the light. In that kind of tank, tannins can be visually frustrating, even if they are biologically harmless. Activated carbon gives you the choice. You can enjoy driftwood without accepting permanent tea-colored water. You can keep the natural layout and still make the water look polished. You can decide whether you want black water atmosphere or crystal clear display water. One of the biggest beginner traps in the aquarium hobby is treating every visual problem as a cleanliness problem. Cloudy water, green water, brown water, yellow water, surface film, algae, and debris can all make a tank look bad, but they do not all come from the same cause. A bottle that helps one problem may do almost nothing for another. That is why understanding the cause saves money. Brown water from tannins is not the same as cloudy water from bacterial bloom. It is not the same as green water from suspended algae. It is not the same as white haze from disturbed substrate dust. It is dissolved staining from natural organic compounds. Once you identify that, the solution becomes obvious. Use chemical filtration designed to remove dissolved organics. That is activated carbon. The process is simple. Buy aquarium activated carbon. Put it in a fine mesh bag. Rinse the dust out. Place it after mechanical filtration inside your filter, or place it in a high-flow area if you do not have a media chamber. Let the filter run normally. Watch the water over the next day or two. Replace the carbon when the water begins to tint again. Use it temporarily in planted tanks if you dose fertilizer heavily. Choose phosphate-free or acid-washed carbon when possible. Avoid non-aquarium charcoal. That is the entire system. The reason this feels almost too simple is because aquarium marketing often makes water problems feel more complicated than they are. A shelf full of bottles creates the impression that every issue needs a special liquid. Brown water remover, water clarifier, polishing formula, conditioner, purifier, quick, clear solution, and advanced treatment all sound convincing when your tank looks ugly, but many of those products are only useful when matched to the right problem. Activated carbon has survived in the hobby for so long because it does a basic job very well. It removes many dissolved impurities and discoloring compounds by giving them an enormous surface area to stick to. It is not glamorous. It is not new. It is not a secret formula. It is simple filtration chemistry. That is exactly why it works. The other thing to remember is that driftwood changes over time. Fresh wood usually releases the most tannins. Some pieces leach heavily for weeks or months. Others barely stain the water at all. Boiling or soaking wood before adding it to the tank can reduce tannins, but it does not always remove them completely. Large, dense pieces may continue releasing color long after they look clean on the outside. Over time, however, most wood slows down. The tannin load becomes easier to control. This means you may need more frequent carbon replacement in the early months, then less later. You are not necessarily signing up for permanent heavy maintenance. You are managing the strongest leaching period while the aquarium matures. Water changes can help too, but water changes alone often frustrate people because the wood keeps releasing more tannins after each change. You remove stained water, refill with clear water, and then the tint slowly returns. Activated carbon works differently because it keeps removing the dissolved compounds as they enter the water column. In some tanks, combining a water change with fresh carbon gives the fastest visual result. The water change reduces the initial concentration, and the carbon handles what remains and what continues to leach. But without carbon, repeated water changes can become a loop. You keep removing brown water, and the wood keeps making more. That is why people feel like they are fighting the same battle every week. The solution is not always more water changes. Sometimes the solution is the right media in the right place. When your tank is clear again, you will notice how much tannins changed the appearance. Fish colors look sharper. Red plants look less muddy. Green plants look brighter. The hardscape has more contrast. The light penetrates the water more cleanly. The whole aquarium looks more intentional. This is especially important for display tanks and YouTube tanks because the camera exaggerates watercolor. A slight amber tint in person can look much darker on video. If you are filming your aquarium, selling plants, showing fish, or building a tank meant to look clean and bright, tannin control becomes part of the presentation. Activated carbon is one of the easiest ways to get that polished look without changing the entire aquascape. But do not mistake clear water for perfect water. Clear water can still be dangerous if ammonia or nitrite are present. Brown water can still be safe if it is only tannins. Visual appearance is only one clue. Testing and observation still matter. The point is not that carbon replaces good aquarium care. It does not. You still need a stable cycle, reasonable feeding, proper stocking, enough filtration, and regular maintenance. Carbon is simply the correct tool for this specific visual problem. That is why the diagnosis matters so much. If your tank has a brown or yellow tint, the fish are healthy, the parameters are stable, and there is driftwood or botanicals in the aquarium, think tannins first. Do not immediately assume your tank is dirty. Do not immediately pour in another random bottle. Do not tear the whole aquascape apart. Use fresh activated carbon in good flow and give it time to work. The aquarium hobby becomes much easier when you stop treating symptoms blindly and start matching each problem to its actual cause. Brown water from tannins looks ugly to some people, but it is one of the easiest problems to understand once you know what is happening. Natural materials release dissolved organic compounds. Those compounds tint the water. Activated carbon adsorbs those compounds. The water clears. That is the entire chain. So, the next time your aquarium looks like weak tea, even though the fish are healthy and the test kit says everything is fine, do not panic. Look at the driftwood. Look at the botanicals. Think about tannins. Then put a small bag of aquarium-activated carbon in the right place. You may find that the tank you thought was dirty was actually healthy all along. It was just stained. And the fix was not a complicated treatment plan, an expensive bottle, or a full reset. It was a simple piece of chemical filtration that has been sitting on the shelf the whole time.